Welcome to Table Talk. I'm here with the man Brian himself. We'll start with you already given me a little bit of an introduction. Give me some more introduction for the folks that aren't familiar with your work,
My work.
your life,
So
your arm
yeah,
wrestling career.
yeah. So I'll just kind of give you the what got me into arm wrestling. I was sitting on the couch scrolling through YouTube as we do. This was probably 2000 and late 2016, 2017, and I saw a video about Jeff Dabe, and so Jeff Dabe is who cracked the door. It was like I think it was a real life Popeye, right? And it's got Jeff Dabe and his giant arms, and I it was almost like a documentary,
Mhm.
and I'm sure it was pirated, but anyway. So I watched that, and of course, Jeff Dabe talks about arm wrestling in his day to day life, and um, then I was already subscribed to Juji Mufu, um, and Juji went to a tournament where with Bill Collins and Jeff Dabe. And Bill and Jeff kind of took Juji under his wing for, like, it's your first tournament. Here's what you need to look at. So really it was Jeff Dabe, then Bill Collins, then Juji of course did that video with Devin, um, and WAL was still a thing. So it was Jeff Dabe, Bill Collins, then Devin. Through the WAL, I was introduced to Jerry Catterett, Todd Hutchings, um, insert WAL athlete, right? I binge watched them all, from the 400 series and up. So didn't really. I was more interested in arm wrestling long before I started really training for it. Did I did my first real tournament 2018. Um, it was up at the Tannery Row Brewery up in Buford, and I went to that tournament having knowing nothing. Um, I had no training. I just said let's just go see what this is about. Took my two immediate losses and fell in love regardless. Danny Carr was up there, and he graciously took me under his wing. Of course, you see legends walk in like Ron Bath, of course, was there. You know, hidden gems, like Adam Warzinski at the time was there. Cody Wood was just, I think, breaking out at the time, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So I fell in love with it, started training, and the rest is kind of history.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that was you. You dipped your toes in the water. Took your
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
No, it was for me. It was the Pulling John documentary. That's what you gotta
It can't go wrong. Can't go wrong.
figure out, Pulling John.
Yep.
So after that, you got what was the guy's name? You said you kind of took you under his wing. Was that kind of
So,
who you were with?
Danny Carr, when you show it to a tournament, especially one that big, I didn't know anybody.
Mm.
Um, and I was just kind of sitting there, and I showed up early. And for anyone who is been an arm wrestler for any length of time, no arm wrestling tournament ever starts on time, right? So I showed up early for weigh-ins, and I was the only one there for a long time. So everybody started kind of pouring in, and Danny probably could tell that I was the new guy. I must have had that look on my face, that deer in the headlights look. And so he warmed up with me, and he just kind of, say, yeah, this is my first tournament. And I honestly, I've tried to keep in touch with him. I haven't really been able to get up with him. So I don't know if he's still arm wrestling or not. He was mostly a left hand. I think due to an injury, he was mostly a left hand guy. But
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's it. You roll up your first tournament, and you find some folks, and they're like, yeah, come sit over here. Yep.
yeah, yep.
You'll find
Well,
somebody.
and of course, Ron Bath walks in, and I'm like, oh my god, like I want to go say hey, but I don't want, mildly starstruck, like that's the guy from WAL, right? So
Oh yeah. Yeah. You have to get your picture with Ron. The
yeah,
first.
I mean, and I think it's very easy. I think you and I were talking about this at uh, my tournament a couple weeks ago. Um, if you live in North Georgia, I feel like it's probably easy to kind of glaze over the fact that you can practice with Ron Bath. You know, like if you live in Spartanburg or near, you can practice with Chad Silvers. You know, insert living legend, right? You know, if you have access to those people, take advantage of it.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's like when I got to meet him for the first time, and then I got to go to a Paul Passmore practice, and Ron was there, and then it went all the way from because I live really close to Ryan, and
Mm-hmm.
so he's come down here on one occasion to visit with Ryan, and came to our small practice. So it's like the four of us in a room with Ron Bat. Like one, he has we train in like my buddy's office with his arm wrestling table. It's just all us and Ron and Andrew there, and we're just like having a great time. Like, oh, okay, all right, just sit here and take it all
Right,
in.
right.
Yeah.
When years from now, when the sport finally blows up and arm wrestling's on ESPN, you know, all the OG guys, they'll remember like, yeah, that practices used to happen in people's basements and closets. And yeah, so
No, it's out under a carport. I mean, that's the only place. Yeah, yeah.
yep,
Oh yeah.
yep.
So after that tournament, how long did it take you to find like a group of people to practice with? I mean, did you find somebody?
So I went to my first tournament in 2018, the one in Buford, and I started training. I didn't know how to really train. I knew I got the bug. I didn't know where to go from there. So around 2019 is when I really started to dedicate. Okay, you know, this is a different. This is not just weightlifting. There's something, you know, there's more to bench press than this. So I started, and of course, YouTube is such a crazy resource nowadays. Um, I went to another very, very, very small tournament in Jessup, Georgia, and it was actually in memory of Alex, former Carolina Chaos member, who had passed recently around that time. I think this was 2020, I think. So all the Carolina Chaos guys came down, and and it was very, very small, a tournament. Some Savannah guys came over. Maybe some guys from North Florida. Anyway, and I just noticed, like some things stick out in your mind, and Adam Wierzinski was the one thing that stuck out in my mind. And I finally just broke down and messaged him on Facebook one day. I was like, all right, um, I saw you in Buford and I saw you at Jessup. Can you take me on your wing? Can you train me? And he gave me a very straightforward answer in that you're welcome to come to my gym, but I practice with my team on Sundays. I.e., if you want me to train you, you've got to come practice with my team. And knowing what little bit I know about Adam now, like that is he's a ride or die, for his team. Like if you have Adam as a friend, like he's I could imagine him being true blue, true to the end. You know what I mean? So I messaged Chad Silvers not long after that, just to, because would be the captain, and I wanted to make sure I was invited, and started going up there, and that's a 5-hour drive one way for me. So I went up there, and I mean, you're talking Chad Silvers, Adam Wierzinski, Shane Owens, Hunter Knopfs, Matt Harris, Fritz Corey, like some heavy hitters. And that's just to name a few. And I got my 5 hour drive worth, you know. So I was going 2 or 3 times a month. Um, it's just it was a little hard to make, but I made it, and that's where I really cut my teeth was with those guys. And my daughter was just born. She'll be turning 4 this year, so she was just born, and it was kind of hard. And growing up, in a Christian faith based home, I being a dad now, I wanted to show my daughter that church is a priority, and I really hated to step away from um, going to see those guys and training with those guys, but that was as much of a priority as arm wrestling is. My faith is a higher priority. Um, so from there, and what a great group of guys to cut your teeth with, right? As far, I mean, so from there, I was really training alone. And as you know, table time is can't beat it. Um, I trained with the Savannah team just recently, actually, but a couple times before that, and we've got a couple guys here local that are started arm wrestling in November. So I've kind of taken them under my wing, and it's cool to be on the other side of the table. And I like to teach anyway, so I'll catch myself rambling in my teachings, and I could have answered it in one sentence instead of you know. But I like I said, I like to teach, so I kind of probably go a little too far with that. So I've got a very small team, but the gym that we work out at and train at, they're very cool. It's the same gym that I hosted my tournament at. Um, they're very cool people. They let me leave my table there, let us practice there. So and it's good in the sense that now other weightlifters get to have eyes on arm wrestling. They'll see me over there at the pulleys working with my handles, doing wrist curls, and they're like, "What's that goofball over there doing?" And I can say, "Well, hey, come try it," right? And then it's kind of, "Oh man, it's a different thing." So it's that's kind of how everything panned out, for me. If it really wasn't for Adam and Chad and Shane, uh, Gage, Matt, all those Carolina guys, I probably wouldn't be as into arm wrestling as I am. So,
Did your team have a name? Did y'all come up with that?
no, not yet. You I feel like you have to have we have to get multiple team members on a podium before we can have a team name. So
I do always wonder about the certain rules about that because
it's unspoken, right? It's unspoken.
There's just a lot of unspoken, like getting a nickname.
Yeah, yeah. You don't get to pick your own nickname. No. You're handed a nickname.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It took I think a year and a half, maybe 2 years, before they gave me I got a nickname.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So yeah. Because it's funny too, because I think Georgia, we have Walls of Power. I think is probably the oldest team we have, and it's sort of
sounds right.
And it's sort of, in my mind, we're all kind of Team Georgia, Walls of Power, and then there's our own little. So I don't know how many people would agree with that sentiment.
Right.
I am right. In my heart, like I like because I've got my team. We're Team Dirty South, and then but I practice with those guys all the time. We all go to Paul's house,
Yeah, I feel like there's backwoods arm wrestling. That's the Savannah guys. Mm-hmm. I feel like you only break out the team T-shirts at tournaments, and that's when you sit at every team has their own table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's the only thing. Our group, our team's been around for a good while, and we've been really consistent, but we haven't got on the shirts.
Right.
Yeah. So that'll be that might be the next step for us at some point.
There you go.
is the
Make
shirt.
it make it official.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so for training, how much do y'all train? Do you train once a week, twice a week?
So my guys really, they were interested in arm wrestling, and they got some table time. This was back in November, so they're still, within that first year, newbie, um, dealing with the pain pretty good. They are, so give them props for that. So they competed in the tournament I hosted, and that really gave them the bug. Once you can experience a legit ready go, instead of a practice time ready go, that kind of gave them the real itch. So Mondays is our practice for now, but um, Mondays are hard table time. Friday we'll do more like center table, just pressure in the hand, um, you know, combative style, maybe probably no more than 50%, to work the small movements, but also to kind of heal up for Monday. Um, One of my guys was actually just asking me about, Todd Hutchings, the conjugate method that he adapted from Westside, and we went into a long conversation about that, and I think that's a great way to say a short tidbit is that no one should train the same as somebody else. So Monday, to answer your question, Monday we practice table time hard, and Friday we'll do small movements, probably 30-50%, something like that, and then Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday we'll do weights.
No, if I'm not, did you pull that from Carolina Chaos? Because if I'm not mistaken, don't they practice twice a week as well? I know the Sundays their big practice, and
Unless
maybe
something has changed, they pull Sunday, and they pull hard enough on Sunday that it lasts through the week. Um, they definitely adopt a take no prisoners mentality, especially, and if there's a big, whether it's any if there's any member of the team that has a big match coming up, or if there's a tournament coming up, they will hammer hard, like okay, it's prep time. So it's either it's a 2 or 3 hour practice of pretty much nonstop pulling, and it's hard pulling. Um, and then of course from there, they all have their own weightlifting regiments that I think they adhere to.
okay. Yeah, no, I've definitely seen. I think more arm wrestlers would do the 2 a week if people had the time. There's enough people, just finding the people and the time, and like
Right.
getting our group together once a week is sometimes even just a logistical challenge.
So I get a little bit of flack for not training my left as much as I should on the weights, and it's okay. So Chad Silvers is a big proponent of volume. Last time we talked, one set for him is like 50 reps, right? Last time we talked. Um, okay, so if I do 50 with a strap wrench over top hand, and then turn around and do 50 on the low hand, working pronation and supination. Okay, so that's 100 reps. Now I got to turn around and do left, and we were talking about this earlier too, and I told one of my guys if you see someone ranked left and right handed, that's a real man, like or woman. It's just a lot of time, like you said, and I just put my kid to bed 27 minutes ago, and I got home from the gym at 8, so it's the older you get, you find out the less time you really have, and now you just got to make time. So like soon as we in the video, I'll probably do some rice bucket work and shower and go to bed.
Yeah, yeah. I have
You got a kid now,
Oh well, no, it's my new job.
Yeah,
I have
that's
shamed
right.
I think this is the first time I've missed 3 practices in a row.
Mm.
Oh, it hurts.
You'll be having newbie pains again if you're not careful.
Oh, I mean, really? Yeah. No, I mean, I think I've taken 3 weeks off if you're counting like a tournament in between or something like that. And I've gotten
Yeah.
like I pulled sick. Like I got sick, and I'm like, oh, man, I'm going to practice. I was sick 2 days ago. I'm mostly better. Like I just
Mostly better.
yeah, I'm mostly better. You just go. It's hanging out. Like half of it's the hanging out part.
Right. Camaraderie.
Because it's we like talking about arm wrestling as much as we like
Of
arm
course.
wrestling.
Of course.
But yeah, so I've been working with my new job on can I get off early on Thursdays, please? And thank you. I'd really appreciate it.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody's like, are you really? Is that like a thing you're doing? It's like, yeah, that's the thing I did. So and so you're training, I think you mentioned when we talked a little bit like you lost a lot of weight. That's a part of
Yes.
it's a part of your journey as well.
Yeah. So, and it's not to duck out of a weight class per se. This was like a health thing. Um, if my phone wasn't on the charger, I'd supply you with a picture. But when I first started my weight, when I first actively started trying to lose weight, it was January, and I was 230. As of this morning, I'm 188.
There you go.
So my goal probably would be 180 because I'm starting to see some abs starting to. So 180 would probably be a good soft goal weight, and then of course the arm wrestler kicks in, and I'm like, well, what's a few more pounds for another weight class? So
176 is where it's at.
So 176, man. So that's probably where I'm gonna try to end up. And to go down this rabbit hole. So you're a carnivore guy. You're still doing carnivore?
On and off. This month's
Oh, I don't know.
yeah, on and off.
Hey, listen. If you can stick to any kind of diet with a newborn, hats off.
Yeah.
So I've just been counting calories. I believe I almost follow everything Lane Norton says to a T. It's to me, calories in, calories out. Ultimately, it's whatever works for you and what you can adhere to. Consistency is the key in most things, right? So there's only been a few days, and I'm in a pretty steep deficit. I just cut back again, so right now I'm aiming for 1,600 a day, but 1,650 is kind of where I'm really at. But I'm trying, that's like my grace window. And it is aggressive, but there's only been a few days where I'm like, man, I really like, I'm not here for this. This cut life kind of sucks, but um, I've never had a very fast metabolism, so I really have to make sure that I'm getting my protein. I'm getting good sources of protein, and whenever I do hit once, I'll probably try to get to. I'll probably eyeball 170 so that whenever I do start to increase my calories to maintenance, I can kind of maybe I'll play around with it. So I've actually enjoyed that aspect of it, is manipulating my calories and seeing a direct correlation. The heaviest I've ever been was 240, and I said, okay, something's got to give. And I didn't really go into weight loss with a strategy or a plan. I just I just tried eating less. So I didn't count. I can't really tell you what I did, but I lost weight. And I hit a really, really hard plateau around like 210, and I just kind of stayed there and kind of leveled out at 225, 230 after I put on a few more pounds. So I stayed there for about a year, and then I said, okay, it's time to get serious about health in general. And I was still training arm wrestling, but who does cardio, right? Nobody does cardio. Um, uh, so I got serious about getting healthier, just cutting fat, and I didn't want to ease into it. I was probably eating roughly 2,500 calories a day, and I immediately the following week I immediately dropped to 1,750. And a lot of people would say that's not the right way to do it, but for me, my brain, I'm like, okay, it's cut time. It's weight loss time. So yes, I'm happily sub 190, and I've not been sub 190 in a long time.
Nah, I mean that's the 2 times when I first started carnivore, it was like just out of I like the diet, I like the science, like how it went. And then the second time when I got back onto it, she was like a month or two old, and I had ballooned up to 190, which was like way bigger than I had ever been. And I was like, no, this isn't this isn't doing it. Because I mean, I've made it to 155. I've made it to 153.9.
Wow.
That's lean. It was a lean real. That's probably as low as I could get. And that was for 2024 Alabama State. I was on the diet for 3 months. That's the nice thing about the diet is like you're talking about playing with the calories. I only ever eat usually one meal a day when I'm all the way on the diet. So I just eat a bigger meal or a smaller meal. Cut out.
So you do OMAD and carnivore, more or less.
Usually,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really, because I just am not hungry. I don't have if I'm fully fat adapted, I'm not hungry all day. I come home, I eat my one meal, and it's a big meal. I mean, I'm eating 4 pieces of chicken and cheese and some raw milk. I'm eating a big meal. Yeah, it's a feast. And then I'm not hungry. Yeah. And sometimes it's like, oh, okay, maybe an hour or two. I'm like, oh, maybe I have like a piece of cheese or something. But it's usually in like a good 1, 2, 3 hour window. When I'm being consistent. I mean, this month has been difficult, and part of it is also the job as well, because I'll usually work from like 9 to 8, and so it's like I just am gonna fast for the 3 days I'm working my long days. Like I just won't eat it all, And then it's like, oh, maybe they have free hot chocolate at work. It's hard to they have a chocolate machine. So.
Be like, can you?
It's tough. I'm hanging there.
You're walking in with your raw milk. Can you use this in your hot chocolate machine, please?
Yeah, get the organic cocoa in there. Yeah. So that's good. But so speaking of now, the big thing I was going to talk to you about is tournaments, because you ran a tournament. I was thinking about the weight class. I'll just go ahead and jump into this question. How do you feel about weight classes for tournaments? Do you have? Because I know there's been some shifting opinions on weight classes all the time. Do you have a take on that?
All right. So some caveats first. I am not a promoter, and I am not a professional arm wrestler. So, with those two in mind, man, I don't have a dog in that fight. I could see an argument for, why are we using weight classes that are derived from kilogram weight classes, something that a different, that we adopted, so to speak. I think Boom, right? Aren't they the most recent post I saw? Aren't they doing like in 10-pound increments? Is that what I saw?
Yeah, I would love to get him on here. He'd be a fascinating guy to talk to. But that's something I wanted to ask him about is the 10-pound increment.
So I saw that, and I was interested in that. Obviously, he would have the attendance to fill out all those classes. That's just a lot of brackets to make.
That was my first thought. That was my only real concern. It's already gonna be long enough.
Right. Is it 130 or 140 that they're starting at?
30, I thought.
Okay, so right. So I'm trying to think, like even the smallest guys that I
It was
can think
11
of,
classes.
11 classes.
I think it was 11 classes. I remember counting. I was trying to compare. And
To
let's just
say
start.
this, right, right.
Yeah.
So I will answer your question with this. Anything that is different, that is still in the confines of arm wrestling, that you can call arm wrestling, I think that's great. It's like what arena football is to the NFL, right? It's still football, it's just different. Um, was it Ian Carnegie that was coming up with a new table design or new pad design?
Oh, that sloped one
Yeah. So
with the
I,
square. Yeah.
yeah. Like awesome. I kind of want to try it.
Sure.
So it's still arm wrestling.
Yeah.
Um, um, I don't necessarily have a dog in that fight for the weight classes. I do think that a 10-pound gap. So if you've got a 191 guy who just can't, for one reason or another, can't get to 189, but doesn't want to be 200. I think that because when you've got a guy shows up at 177 having to pull a 197 guy, that's a big gap. Um, and a lot of that can be height, weight, both. Um, so I think it's interesting, and I applaud them for doing something different than the standard, 154, 176, 198. And I look forward to the feedback from that.
Yeah. I think he's pretty explicitly said it was like, this is a test.
Sure. Well, and I mean the only reason like I didn't, because so speaking of my tournament, I put on that tournament specifically for people in Hazelhurst to come watch arm wrestling. For those that don't know, Hazelhurst is about an hour and a half from anywhere important. Um, Macon, Savannah, uh, Valdosta, we are kind of smack dab in the middle of Nowheresville. So um, it was really more novice focused. I think you noticed that I didn't call it amateur. I called it novice for a reason. And I was pretty strict on trying to police folks that I knew that weren't novice. You're pulling open. And my rule of thumb was, if you had pulled in 3 tournaments and or won a tournament, you're not a novice anymore in my mind. So I really was setting up that tournament for people to dip their toes in, and I actually had a couple people, local, a bunch of local people showed up to watch, um, fellow gym goers that were like, I don't know about the elbow pain, I don't know about that, but they still love strength, and they love competition. They were there to watch. A couple guys, one guy got second, Miguel. He got second. He's never trained arm wrestling. He's just brutally strong. Um, and every now and then he'll get on the table with me, and he's just almost like Todd Hutchings, Dave Chafee, just straight sideways, and he's super strong. Um, so that that was what I geared that tournament towards, and uh, man, I had some really cool people show up, and a lot more support than I thought. Savannah guys showed up, had you guys, at Reffin, you, Trevin, Brandon, Cody. Um, the very first person to register at the tournament was Corey Bresnan, right? Um, minus 100 pounds, Corey Bresnan. So he walked in. I'll tell you this. This is a funny, mildly embarrassing, but it's understandable. Corey walks in Friday night, dehydrated, cut, weighed in at 217. we're all used to the 330-pound Corey. And he had like cut his hair, and he walked in, and I didn't recognize him because he also looked kind of like someone who I thought was going to be showing up. Anyway, so I said, "Hey man, how are you?" And man, he looks familiar. Those tattoos look familiar. He's not big enough to be Corey. Corey's hair looked different. And I said, I didn't want to assume, right? I said, "Are you pulling novice or open?" No, I'm pulling open. And then, of course, after I realized who it was, I'm like, man, I just asked Corey Bresnan, is he pulling novice? Okay, got it. So look,
when he walked
if I, yeah, so look, if I lost 100 pounds, I'd like to think nobody would recognize me, right? So, and here's the cool thing. Not only was he the first person to register at my little humble tournament, he had just recently moved to Buford like 4 weeks ago, and the Buford people didn't know that he had moved there. So he literally snuck in back into Georgia, unknown to folks. And Trevin, I said, okay, I messaged my refs, you guys, and I was like, did anybody know that Corey was going to show up? And Trevin was like, for real? I've been wanting to pull him for forever. So it was a cool. That was kind of a surreal moment. And like Micaiah Polk was there to support one of his buddies. There was just some good times were had, and proud to announce Battle at the Bar 2 is in the stagings, with a super match in talks and discussion. I won't say who, but well, I hate the C word contract, but it's just been in discussion. There's nothing been signed, so to speak. But I don't think these guys have ever pulled before. I kind of want to leak it, because both guys have agreed. Is that to the point? If they've agreed and we've settled on negotiations, is you tell me.
Hey, I have no idea.
All right, so my business advisor is telling me no, so I'll keep it hush hush. But when we get things agreed, you'll be the first to know, and we can do a Code of Arm Wars announcement. So, but I will say both guys have mean a lot to me for various reasons. And I'll just leave it at that. So it'll be very special for me, regardless. But what I would like to turn Battle at the Bar into is and this is thinking way ahead. I learned the hard way how expensive running a good tournament. And I'm not saying mine was good, but like paying the refs well, getting decent trophies, right? $100 per class payout. I didn't make any money. My goal was just to break even, and I think I only ended up having to come out of pocket a little bit. So it was almost a win-win. But if we can turn it into a running series with like titles, title defenses, that's kind of where I'm wanting it to go.
Oh yeah, I've been wanting to do one in our area for forever, because we're in a good spot in Augusta too. We're kind of like South Carolina.
Right.
Yeah. None of my guys have taken me up on it, so now
really,
yeah. Well, Ryan runs a mean bracket, from what I've been told, and so I've been, sometimes I talk, but it's just like you said, it's a huge investment
to do it right, and that was and my tournament was on the heels of some debacle in the payment world, and I said, look, I may go broke. It may be my last dollar, but I'm not going to go down. And especially my first tournament, I was like, I'm not going to be that kind of person. So I'm like, yep, I may have to eat ramen the rest of the week, but I'm going to pay my refs, So Yeah, no, nothing really caught me off guard. I'm trying to think of, I mean, it was my first tournament, learning experience. Nothing really caught me off guard other than just just how fast paced, how much work goes into it. So while there is, a high standard for the competitors, as competitors want the events to be polished, be run smooth, et cetera, et cetera. Um, I've definitely learned to have a little more grace towards the promoters. Um, one thing I do think that, and I think I made good on it. Um, I advertised it was going to start at 1 o'clock sharp, and that was one thing I'll say I was definitely a stickler for. If it's advertised to start at you know
1.
8 p.m. Oh, yeah, yeah. If it's advertised at 1, by God, we're starting at 1. Even if it's just the rules meeting starting at 1, we're getting the ball rolling.
Something's going.
That's right. That's right. So
Yeah, and so I mean, what are some things you're taking from that tournament? What's going on? Because I know, let's see, we're talking about a new venue, bigger venue, super
yes,
matches. I mean, what are some of the
yes.
big things you're wanting to improve upon? Go forward, taking it. When is this? And when do we have a set date?
So
Yeah,
depending on funding support, um, it'll be October at the earliest, March of 2026 at the latest. So for those that don't know, the last tournament was March 21st. Um, so it'd be March of next year at the latest, October this year at the earliest, depending. Um, the gym that I am a member of, and where the previous tournament was held, the bar, hence the name Battle at the Bar. Um, the owners, they're a couple, Ryan Fannin and Lauren Fannin. They're power lifters. He's getting into strongman, so they're strength fanatics. Um, he is like 6'4". He's in a cut on carnivore, and he is down to a paltry, measly 360. So, so he's just a big giant. He's got a giant hand. Um,
that was a big boy.
yeah, he's a big boy. Yeah, you've seen him. He's a big boy. Um, he grew up a farmer's son of a farmer, basically. So he was like hawking uh, crates of fruit, when he was 8. So he's just always grown up lifting heavy
The
things.
next Cleve Dean over here.
Right, exactly. His goal is to be 320, and I'm like, dude, you're going to be 300 plus with abs. That's going to be nuts. So anyway, they were fully supportive of my arm wrestling venture, and if it hadn't been for them, I wouldn't have been able to leave the entry fee at $20, which was something else I wanted. I wanted it to be approachable for the novices, people who have never really pulled, and was like, what's $20, Um, fully respect that, prices or entry fees are kind of settling at up around 50 now. For the more polished tournaments, I get it 100%. I knew what I was bringing to the table, no pun intended, and I knew what I wanted to target my
Yeah.
my audience. If little did I know Corey Bresnan was actually going to show up. But if open pro guys come, great. This is for my novices in the area to kind of throw out some seed, and let's see if any of it takes root, kind of thing. Um, so they're on board. They've said they're in the process of potentially looking into a bigger locations, but they have voiced to me openly, um, if need be, like, you let us know when the next Battle at the Bar is, and we're going to shut the gym down for 2 days, and we're going to move out equipment, and you can have the big room. So with that being said, um, Battle at the Bar 2 is going to be bigger and hopefully better. So what have I taken away? I've taken away that you do not have to cookie cutter a tournament, especially since like I don't operate under IFA, PAL. I don't operate under. It's just me, right? So if I chose to adopt, the new boom weights, categories, or if I can make categories whatever I want, right? If I actually, I think I did it backwards from what most people do is in terms of, and I didn't even realize it until later. So normally it's left hand run the weight classes, right hand run the weight classes. Isn't that right?
Oh, I've seen. I feel like I've seen both ways. Depends. Yeah.
Okay, so and I didn't even intend for this. It's just what came out of my mouth when I was announcing the classes. I did 154 left, 154 right, 176 left, 176 right. And at least at the tournaments I've been to, I haven't seen that. Again, I have,
Yeah.
I'm not a seasoned vet or anything. Um, I like that. Is it better? I don't know, but I liked it. Um, and mostly I didn't get a stink eye from the refs, so that was a good thing. Another takeaway: invest in quality referees. Um, they don't have to be certified. At least if you're not operating under a banner. Invest in good people. I had Tommy Strickland on standby, like as kind of a substitute referee. Tommy's not certified, but he's been arm wrestling for 11 years, I think. So a solid could easily fill in for a ref, right? Um, if whoever you get for your referees, pay them respectably, and have that negotiated first, beforehand. Um, your prize payouts can be flexible, because I get it. You would like to take your entry fees to kind of offset that, or if you don't have a nest egg set up or anything like that. But pay your refs, pay your winners, and um, probably if I could just take one, it'd be don't be afraid to run a tournament the way you would want to be able to run a tournament the way that you would want to be a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are some? So like, so we have a date set. We're thinking hopefully bigger venue.
Yep.
Hopefully some super matches.
There will be super matches. How many and
mean,
and who? There will be at least one, at least one.
At least
But yes, if we may have to wait till Battle at the Bar 3 before we have any like actual, weight category championships. But Battle at the Bar 2 will have at least one super match.
this one super match. We got some folks we could call.
Yeah, 100%.
We got some folks we could
100%.
call. Let's see who's around. I know. You could always put me up there, but I don't think I do very good.
I wouldn't do very good either. So
I got some folks in mind. We could, yeah.
yep.
Super
So
match.
so if I could have a dream super match, I um I have been wanting Chad Silvers to have a super match so bad that I cannot see straight. When Adam had Adam's debut at East versus West, and Chad got some screen time, I was like, this is it. Like, yeah, and I think Travis kind of gave a nod to Chad. He's like one of the OGs, been around for a long time, and obviously that was Adam's time, right? But I was like, man, I'm like who wouldn't love to see Chad and Craig Touye one more time? Who wouldn't love to see um, So I was really wanting, hoping that Chad would kind of get to dust off the boots one more time, um, and maybe. I have not contacted him. So spoiler: the one super match for Battle at the Bar 2 does not include Chad Silvers yet. So, but I mean, who? Okay, so I'll ask you. So, who would be your one person that you would like to dust off, so to speak, pull out of retirement, if you would, for a super match? You can't say Ron Bass.
Realistic, yeah, like a realistic one. It's like
Yeah,
like John Jake's getting his surgery. I mean, that's not. Yeah, that's
right.
like
Yeah, yeah. So
joke.
somebody. Okay, so we'll say somebody who is still training, and has been active in the last 3 to 5 years.
Well, I feel like I should call out Ike because he's not
Ooh,
because
he's too busy fishing now, right?
too busy fishing. But if you give him something to train for, he just might come out and
Now,
spark.
now, now he's been on a cut too, right?
Oh, he's lost. I don't know if you've seen the pictures.
I've seen some. I haven't stalked him
He
or anything.
um he's got some posts I can send you after the fact. He's lost, I want to say, multiple hundreds of pounds. I don't know if I'm remembering
I
that
mean, he was
correctly.
a super heavyweight for
He
sure.
was
Beforehand,
he's very large, and now well, I
giant
joked with
hand too.
oh yeah, well, and I joked with him. I joked with him when he was first starting his cut, and he just kept getting smaller and smaller. And he was doing his captain's training at the same time, but he made it to one practice every so often. And said, "I keep going from here to here." That's how drastic it was. And now his arms are really all the way by his side. That's how much weight he's lost.
Wow.
I still think he's a super heavyweight, but he's like
If he's
he's.
not careful, he can make the 242s.
I'd have to ask him. Yeah, but it is a drastic amount of weight.
That's awesome.
I think some of it's like just the skin now too because of how much.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But he did the strongman for so long.
It's so interesting to me that so like Corey,
powerlifting, I think he did.
yeah. So like Corey Bresnan, totally forgot that he was a former power lifter. Micaiah Polk, kind of an up and comer. I think he was most recently known for the Monster Factory. Um, he's power lifter, strong man, and that's what I try to tell my friends who know I'm an arm wrestler, but they're not in arm wrestling. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, yes, there is technique involved, but at the base level, it is a strength sport. Um, like, like, yes, I can. So I have decent bench press technique. That does not mean that my technique is going to make me bench press 405 pounds,
No.
right? There's a couple guys at my gym that are just ridiculously strong. They don't really know how to arm wrestle outside of like the first 5 minutes I taught them, just like how to stay safe and bend your wrist. And one guy in particular, he's like 200 and some change pounds, and lean. So he is so fun to pull because he'll meet you in a deep hook, like fully supinated in, and then he will can opener pronate way from inside to outside, and it's just to me it's the wildest thing that his rotation is that strong and he doesn't train it, and some people are just strong.
They got it.
Yeah, they got it. That's right. And some people get strong just by touching weights. I'm not that guy. So
No. Well,
I'm
yeah.
not that guy, pal.
I would love to see Ike because he's been ranked in Georgia
Mhm.
before, and I think he's still technically ranked. And people will call him out for a spot every now and again. He'll just show up and he'll win and yeah, like
He'll disappear again.
yeah, disappear again. Yeah, he had. I filmed him at a Paul Passmore practice last year. He had a super match. with somebody, and Tim McPherson was reffing it, and it was right at the beginning of the practice. And I think the other guy might have got one on him, but I won. He hadn't pulled out. So I had this press in a while. But yeah. I mean, because he's the guy. If you're in our area, in the Augusta area, even out towards Atlanta, Ike's the guy who knows everybody. He's gotten so many folks. So many folks have come to our club or found a club through him. And he's been pretty integral in the scene in the Georgia scene, at least for 5-ish years, I want to say. He's just one of those, he just knows everybody. So.
Well, and he's a likable guy. I mean, he's outgoing, and I've only been around him a handful of times, but it's like, man, if Ike can't make you smile, like, you need to check yourself. Maybe you're the problem.
Well, I told you the story about one of the first tournaments I went to, and there's the squabble. There was a squabble about a certain match, and two people weren't getting along, and there's a big kind of thing, and Ike was just standing there.
Oh yeah.
Look on his face.
Back
He's
when he
I'm
had
ready
no
to
neck,
go. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm ready.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the coolest thing about arm wrestling is the vast majority of people you'll run into at tournaments are just good people. Yeah, it's competition, and every now and then, tensions are high and blood pressure gets high and testosterone gets high. But man, most of the time it's just good people in the arm wrestling community.
Well, they went and bought each other a beer after, so there's
right.
Yeah.
And I mean,
the other guy, the one guy, he just flash pinned him, and everyone went, yeah.
Right. So I'll tell you, yeah. So I'll tell you a funny. So the very first. No, this was the second practice that I went to in Carolina Chaos. At the time, they were training in a I think they were in between spots, and it was in a tattoo parlor is kind of where it was held at the time. So I messaged Chad and I said, hey, is it okay if my wife and daughter comes? And when I say daughter, she was 7 months at the time. So I drug my 7-month-old in a car seat 5 hours one way to sit in a tattoo parlor while I went in the back room and practiced. So we're all leaving, and and big bad Chad Silvers comes up and gives my daughter a little coochie coo, and meanwhile all these giant men are walking out, and there's Chad Silvers with my daughter, and that was funny to me. But man, they're just good people. Ike, Tommy Strickland, all the Savannah guy. I can count on maybe like one hand the number of guys I've met in arm wrestling that and they're still not like bad guys. They're just like, yeah, they're there. Hey, how you doing? I'm gonna go over here, kind of thing. Yeah. Just good people.
Yeah, not too many of those, thankfully.
That's right.
Well, I can imagine like Chad Silvers, that your daughter was probably the size of one of his biceps.
Not even, because my daughter was a preemie, so not even.
No, they have their own gravitational pull. Or they? I mean, I've not got to see them in person, but the pictures.
All right, so I imagine it feels the same, like pulling or gripping up with Ron. I've never gripped up with Ron. Chad's hand is, because Chad's not tall. Chad's hand is, it's all, I would imagine Ike's hand before he lost all the weight, and it's about the same, I would say, thickness, not length, but I would say the same meatiness. His hand is just, and I don't know what he feels like on a ready go in a tournament, but in practice, he has a very neutral, like he's not leading any way. And you're kind of like, okay, I feel like I can go here. I feel like I can maybe go here, or okay, and it's just immediate denial.
Yeah.
Um, I think the biggest thing that, because Chad will hook you, press you, top roll you, and there's not much you can do about it unless you're just up there at that level with him. I think the biggest thing that impresses me most with Chad is his press, how fast his press is.
Mm.
It is crazy fast, and you can see a little bit of that if you go back and watch his match with Todd Hutchings in WAL. Um, if I remember right, they're not in the strap. Neither one is really trying to slip, but Todd's kind of doing a pronated lead side pressure thing, and Chad is walking over top in a top roll, and he just dives in on a press, and it's like I got to rewind it and watch it watch that again. He's just fast with the press, and if, like I said, unless you're up there um, at that strength level, you're just along for the ride. So.
No, yeah, as someone with an aspiring flop press on my left hand.
Well, and so I mean, all those guys are strong, right? Like, but you can kind of feel where it's like, okay, I'm not at that level, but I can kind of see where I need to be. I can kind of see, I can get a glimpse, right? I, and it's been 3 or 4 years since I practiced with those guys. But from what I remember, I'm like, I have no idea where his level's at. Yeah.
No, no. Sometimes those are my favorite people to practice with, is because they can give you so much when they're that many levels ahead.
Yeah.
But like, because there's guys I practice with, and then there's guys I practice with that smoke those guys.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's, we have Trevin on our team, and
Yeah.
he'll tell us, he's like, guys, when I show up to practice, I only use 30%. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
you know,
there are some days where I'll just hold on my guys, and then there are other days where I'll put a band on my hand and give
level
them
hand.
and I'll say, hey, I'm gonna work a little bit, and I'll size the band up to where we're both working good, and then I'll take the band off and say, okay, now it's time for tough love. You got to take your lumps, right? And it's not, we don't do that often, but Chad, I took that from Chad. Um, he another Chad Silver story. We moved locations to his gym, and that was a lot better. And I think he called it in his own way, like giving me my money's worth for the 5 hour drive. He would point at me and say, "Come here," and he'd put his mouth. He has a mouth guard, and he'd put his mouth guard in, and I immediately knew. I'm like, "Oh God." And it was always Fritz. He always asked Fritz to come give a ready go when he would do this to me. I don't know why. He'd say, "Fritz, give us a ready go," and he'd like set up tall, and I'm like, I know what's coming, and immediately we go to the strap, and he'd set up just straight sideways press, and the very first time he did that, elbow pain, arm hurt, like I just got turned inside out, and the first time it hurt bad. Yeah, okay, I got it. Second time he did that, it was probably a couple months later. Same thing. Come here, mouth guard in. Fritz, give us ready to go. And sideways press, just straight sideways. And I mean, shock to the elbow, but it didn't hurt as bad. I set back up for another one. Fritz looked at me and he said, "You better man than I am. I'd have took that and went home." In that southern accent he's got. And so it I called it tough love. So because there, as there is a seasoning you have to do to get those tendons, used to that shock, and I at least in my mind, that's what Chad was doing. Giving me my money's worth. He may have just been wanting to beat up on me. I don't know, but yeah. So
Oh, no, we usually try to be nice to our new guys every now. Well, it was funny. We did it one time. We had a new guy come and he just was like, okay, you stay here and we're gonna pull you until you can't pull anymore. We did that one time
yeah,
to one guy. We never did it again.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's just
I tell my guys it's tough love. Like
yeah.
you got to take your lumps. You gotta get your elbow right. So
Mhm. Yeah. No, but like as far as levels go, like I remember pulling Corey Breslin when he was 300 pounds. He came to a Paul Passmore practice with his dad. They were both there. So I got to watch.
wow.
I have a video of Tim Tim Breslin and Ron Bath pulling as practice. So that and everyone immediately went.
Yeah, right.
Like it was like
Practice stopped.
yeah, we were about an hour in, and then everyone goes get the
Yeah,
camera out.
yeah,
Everybody gets the camera out.
yeah.
But it was funny because Corey Breslin looked at me real funny when I went to pull him, and I was like, "No, I always pull super heavyweights. That's the way my practice for super heavyweights.
Yep.
So I couldn't move him at all. And he's
Right,
got
right.
I want to say it's him. He kind of jokes about because he's had arm break. I think it was an arm break.
I did. Only got a chance to talk to him a little bit. So his scar looks like an arm break, a rod inserted. That's what the scar reminds me of because it's on the, if I remember right, it's on the backside on his
Yeah.
tricep. But he was also talking about like he had a bicep surgery. Um,
Mm.
don't quote me, but
Yeah.
so and that may have been, I think he said this didn't happen yesterday, so I don't remember very well, but um I think he was talking about that scar being the bicep surgery, and I thought that was kind of odd, but that's what he
Mm.
said. But and it could have been an old, deadlift injury, gone wrong. But
Well, I just remember that because when he sets up on that arm, I want to say he sets up with his elbow more inside, and
so
I think he refers to it as his kickstand. Is that what he does?
yeah.
And he
So
and he sets up, and he'll just like let you sit on the bar or whatever's inserted, whatever's in his arm.
right. So
It doesn't move like his other arm. You'll feel it. It's not going anywhere, but it's wiggling.
yeah.
But the other it just stops there because it's on the yeah.
So when we pulled after the tournament, I didn't pull in the tournament. I in my own tournament. Number one, I wasn't ready, and number two, I wanted to run it. I didn't want to mix. I wanted to go smooth. So I pulled a very tired Corey Breslin. He pulled 3 weight classes, both arms.
Both arms.
And he let me get in a hook, and we kind of sat there, and obviously he was very gracious to let me sit there. And he kind of pulled in a drag hook, and it was a good pull. Then he loaded up on the outside of that elbow,
Mm-hmm.
and from there, like his rotation from there is
It was
nuts.
it was the prettiest thing I had seen in a long
Yes,
time. It was
yes,
incredible. It was
yes, and
when I because I hadn't seen him tournament pool. I'd
uh-huh,
seen him practice. I hadn't
uh-huh.
watched any videos of him, and so I saw him at that tournament, and and then he'll just gently.
Yes,
It's the
yes,
and I looked over at Cody. I was like, "Did you see that? That was the most. That was incredible."
yep, yeah. So um, his hook is solid, obviously, but even if you go back and watch past videos, because who did he pull where he went in a deep hook? Oh gosh, he was 330 pounds, Corey. Then I see it. I see him anyway. But I think he would tell you whether it's accurate or not. I think he would tell you that he's more of an outside puller. Um, at least that's what I see when I watch him. And it kind of felt that way too when I got to pull him. Um, so let me ask you this. So you're picking up a press on your left arm.
More or less, yeah.
So on your right arm, you're more of a top roller. Is that right?
Hook, hook.
Hook. Okay. So, or strap or no strap for you? Which do you prefer?
I guess it depends. I mean, we're talking
Okay.
just tournament or practice, or just which one feels best.
In a ready to go tournament.
I guess it depends on who I'm pulling against.
Okay.
Um, so for me, I have teeny tiny hands, very small. Dainty.
Very average size.
Comparative to most people. So when you talk about people's thickness of hands, everyone's hand to me is thick because I can never reach the back of anyone's
Mm,
hands.
mm,
So I am always like this. And so sometimes I prefer the strap because I'm stuck to them and then the hand's taken out of it a little bit.
mhm.
I usually am gripping very low because that's one of the only ways I can stop someone who's got any pronation whatsoever is I grip low and then go in that way. For a flop press, yeah, probably the strap. I'm in a left hand.
Sure.
Yeah. But for hooking, I mean, I just cup and pray. No.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
So when I first, so like I built my first table. When I said, okay, I'm gonna train for this, I built my first table. The pads were awful, but the table was fine, but the pads were awful. Um, if you were to ask me, are you going to top roll or hook? I close my eyes. I'm like, yeah, top roll. Got it, top roll. And I started training up in Carolina, and I'm not sure if it was the fact that my pronation was just so much weaker than everybody else's cup, and I got forced in a hook. I became a hook arm wrestler.
yeah. Yep. Same thing,
And
basically.
yeah, so I had almost sworn off top rolling. Like I'm just not built to be a top roller or whatever. Um, recently, like really recently, and I haven't really been able to. One guy that I practice with, he sets up so his shoulder to elbow is short, but his elbow to fingertip is long for his size. So like his arms are actually stubby, but his elbow to fingertip is long. So he's able to cram that elbow to the front of the pad and get a super high post and it still be a legal grip. So I have to, or most people have to grip underneath him. Like even if you try to rise to meet him, he's still going to be higher than you. So I can't really practice my top roll on him because he's always higher than me. Um, I was at a Savannah practice a couple weeks ago. I was practicing with Tommy Strickland, and he's a low hand top roller, like almost predominantly low hand.
Mm.
And we were kind of talking about my hook and exploring some things. He said, "Try top rolling." I was like, yeah, that's not me. But just try it. And he's ready to go. Bam. I didn't feel nothing wrong with that. Because I mean, even at the tournament, I told you I'm like, yeah, I'm not a top roller. I'm a hooker. And so recently, I have adopted the idea of okay, I'm going to work on my top roll, and I have found for me and where I'm at now, um, outside of the strap, I prefer a hook. In the strap, top roll. Um, and it's really weird because in the strap, I'm still cupping obviously, but it's almost I'm just almost like if you what I imagine Denis Saplenkov kind of looked like pull you with a flat wrist, you just row and pronate and just take you along for the ride, right? But just with my guys working on it, and I noticed that where I felt strongest, I didn't have much cup. It was bent, but it wasn't what we would think in a hook. So I'm tweaking my strap game to adjust to a top roll. Um, and I'll just kind of leave it there. I haven't, it's new ground. It's new ground.
Yeah, my hope. I was watching some videos and they were talking about if you have a smaller hand, it's generally better to top roll because the force you're applying in here is not you don't have a big hand. I'm like, well, I've got the smallest hand I know, so this should be. I think like even I talked to Cody about that too because he's the only person who's even close to me. He's obviously a little bit bigger hand than I do.
Man,
I think I'm just I think I'm the smallest arm wrestling hand that I know. That's not a woman.
so that'd be a great way for you to learn how to slip, right?
Oh, nobody can hold on to me. I mean, yeah, no. If I want to slip, that's not an issue. They're like if Boom's roughing me, like I don't know where his fingers went. They're too small. I can't see them.
Yeah, when you start hollering to get off,
I can't see his fingers.
Yeah. When you start hollering to get,
no, that's just the whole. That's
yeah. No, it's under there. I promise. You just got to look for it.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, I'm thinking just training a lot of this for the next while and see if I can.
The press on your left hand felt really heavy.
That I've got I think I might stick with the press left-handed. I want to still see what I want. I want to be versatile, of course.
Sure, and that's what I told my guys. Like, while I felt like I was forced into a hook just because.
Yeah, guys,
and not complaining about it, but like when you're training with the guys, and you're just forced into a hook. Okay, I got it. But I've got one guy who's well, I'm going to be a hook puller. Well, I'm another guy. Well, I'm going to top roll. Okay, it's fine to have your ace move, right? That's fine, but the more people you group up with, the more tournaments you go to, you're going to start to pick up on where people apply pressures. Like once you get any kind of amount of maturity to your arm wrestling knowledge, and you can tell where somebody is applying pressure in the setup, or you may just get a hold of a hand where you're like, I don't think I can top roll out of this. And so I'm going to go into a hook because I know I can't top roll out of this hand. Let me try let me try a hook, see how that goes. Or in your case, try a press. See, see what that happens.
Yeah. I mean, because all the guys I pull with are, at least most of them are taller than me, longer arms, they top roll. So for the first year and a half, all I was focusing on was keeping my elbow on the pad.
That's right. That's right.
And then all of a sudden, one day I was like, oh, I could sit here real good right in this spot. And that was my hook. Left hand, not so much. But I have the same containment ability generally on my left as I do my right. I just don't have the wrist and the printing and cupping in the same way. It's like, well, if I can sit here really great and I don't have to worry about my wrist, I'll just flip press it.
Yeah. right.
But Cody gets on to me because I set up low for my flop press, and Cody loves height, and I set up low on for both my hook and my flop. And he's like, "You're giving so much away in the setup," and I'm like, "I'm just trying to get it close to me."
So when you press, are you pressing like Jerry, like across the table to them, or are you pressing like to the side?
I push pretty much straight to the side, and I usually end up more on their
once they drag you across.
Yeah, because they're still applying the pressure.
Right.
So the reason I set up low is because it gives me about half an inch more towards me. And if I set up right here,
Okay.
I'm already locked in. I mean, this is exactly where I want to be, and it's pretty
You're
much
just gonna dump and
I'm
go.
just gonna do it that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's my shoulders almost, obviously the ref's gonna bring me back, but
Right.
it's from there to there. That's all I need to do. And then I'm going straight down. As opposed to trying to get high and losing some of that
Well, and
trying to be.
in a way, not that we're arguing with Cody, right? But but it does kind of yeah, right. It does kind of seem that you can lead with like that supinated press a lot quicker than having to, so you're not or you're kind of leading with that the bottom edge of your wrist, right?
Yeah, I kind of got that from Trevin. When he presses.
Oh God, just Trevin presses too.
Trevin can press from anywhere. He will be all the way on his losing side of the table, like way out here, and then he'll just So is if someone's going to supinate, he'll just counter supinate into there, and you'll feel it in the palm, and so that's kind of generally where I've been leading.
I've developed, not necessarily intentionally, but it's just kind of where I've ended up. I set up high for my hook. So like I cap and I will set up to get this space, right? Because I'm thinking I want to chop and drag, right? That's my hook. Well, when I top roll, it is the same from an opponent's point of view. It's the same, like me and a hook, me and a top roll. I'm the only thing that changes is my body posture, right, and my height. And depending on where I want to drive, if it's straight back, I'll kind of sink my hips under the table. But if I kind of want to go to the side, like more of a John Brzenk top roll, if you will, I'll still set up tall. So that was one thing Tommy said. He said he said, I thought you were going to top roll me, and I went and chop down for a hook. I don't feel comfortable setting up low anymore. I used to, and a lot of that's probably just mental. Like I feel more dexterous and connected, like mobile in my left hand. My left hand, if my strength was on par with my right hand, I would definitely be a top roller on my left hand because I just feel more fluid. Whereas my right hand, I felt like that's the whole reason I never top roll was like I just don't have the coordination, right? I rise, skip, roll, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I just didn't have that coordination. A couple weeks ago it clicked,
Yeah,
so I'm not a top roller, but I'm working on it.
No, for me, it's like there's less to deal with if I'm grabbing somebody's wrist than their hand, because when I go for the back of the hand, it's like I said, I can never reach the back of their palm. I'm always sitting like this.
Okay, so
if I grab the wrist, there's less they can do to me with their hand.
And you're getting out of all of the meat.
I don't have to deal with it. I just
okay,
it's so funny because Cody's told me that several times. He's like, "Man, you give everything away in the setup. You grab so low." And the first time he said it to me is the first time I pulled him in a tournament. I think I had seen him once before. That was the first time we chatted a little bit, and I was like, "Well, I pulled against you. I mean, what did you want me to do? Win?"
So I had actually never pulled Cody, partly because I was still pulling novice, but other part was we were separate weight classes. I think he was pulling 154s back then, and even when I did pull open back then, I was pulling the 220 weight class. So first time I ever gripped up with Cody was at my tournament, right before his East versus West match. Crazy strong hand, like I mean everywhere, crazy strong arm, but I did a little bit of a practice with Tommy after the tournament, who was arguably one of the because he would get a couple wins and lose, so he goes to the losers bracket. So like Corey would pull like 3 matches. Corey would win 3 matches, get first place. The third place guy would pull 3 or 4 and get third. Tommy would come in second, and he would have to pull 7 or 8. He'd win 2 and then have to dig himself out of the losers out of the B side. So arguably, Tommy was the busiest dude all night. But pulled Tommy, had a good practice, pulled Corey, and I went 100% with Corey, right? But Cody, like, I'm not obviously you can't compare it's apples to oranges. Cody was fresh, Corey was beat up. Which even minus 100 pounds, he still gave Trevin a little bit more than Trevin thought, I think. Corey, that is. So anywho, Cody's hand just like, that's really what shocked me. Like, kind of like I was talking about with Chad. Like I couldn't feel like I couldn't get purchase anywhere. Like no matter where I applied pressure, it was nuts.
Yeah, that's what I was like. What do you want me to do? I was like,
yeah.
I did my best. I tried.
Yeah, one time I tried to force Chad Silvers in a hook, but I tried everything else, So he said, and I went towards him to try to catch him, and he said, "Why'd you come on my side of the table?" And I'm like, "I was going there anyway, I just figured I'd try to meet you over there." There is something special, when you can, when you grab like somebody who's never arm wrestled and they're just strong, naturally strong, like the guys we were talking about earlier, and then you grab somebody like Cody, like Corey, like Chad, like Adam, and it's just like you feel it in their hand. You don't have to go in a hook and test their arm. You can feel it, and like you feel it right here. Adam, I remember the first time we practiced. So I don't know if you know this, but Adam's right hand is bigger than his left, like by a lot.
Both freakishly large.
The left is not small, but
the
right is from, if I remember the story, he was playing baseball, high school, I guess, and he didn't know this. Like his family didn't know this. But genetically, his right hand is just bigger than his left. He had to buy like buy 2 pairs of baseball gloves, like a double XL for his right and a large for his left, or something like that. And it's not close. It's like a big deal.
Big.
And so, when he grips you, he can just about get to your second knuckle, like easily. So it's like, right. Just so it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to top roll out of this, right? Because his finger containment is nuts as well. So then, okay, so I'm going to go inside, and the dude's got like cannons for arms, right? And he will sit there in that hook, and his rotation in a hook is hydraulic. And his holding ability to just stay in that defensive hook is nuts. So yeah,
watching Adam Warzinski in the hook is one of my favorite things to say.
Oh yeah. The only thing I like better, and I'm very Carolina biased, because that's what I know.
I'm Southeast biased. I'm the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, listen, if I grew up under Ron Bath, I'd be Ron Bath biased. You know what I'm saying? But the only thing I would say is more magical is watching a Hunter Knopf's hit. And I'll tell you, it's every bit as painful as it looks.
Yeah.
He let me, and I can't explain other than what I would describe him as like a mini Todd Hutchings, and I've never pulled Todd Hutchings, but just listening to others, right? That hydraulic sideways, just I don't care what you're doing. I'm going that way and you're going with me. He let me take him in a hook like on past 2 o'clock, and he just yank, and it was nothing but side pressure, and it was nuts. It was just nuts. And that's what I tell my guys. You could get 5 hook arm wrestlers to to teach you their hook, and none of them will pull the same way you do. Your press is going to be different than Jerry's press. If I was a presser, our presses would, no two people pull the same. Which is the beauty of it. Honestly, that is part of what got me into arm wrestling. Is that you could have 2 strong guys who are equal in strength, and then it comes down to, okay, where can I apply pressure? Where can I find a weakness? And it's combat. And there's so many layers to arm wrestling that I think a lot of people overlook. And I'll nerd out on some arm wrestling now, but at the end of the day, yes, it's a strength sport. But if the match stops, who's got the mental acuity or the table IQ to do something about it. That's pretty fun to watch too. As much as we like to see flash pins, grinders are pretty hard to beat.
Oh, I think those are my favorite. Anytime a match stops, everybody's just looking.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be a tournament. Two big guys step up there. The other table, they're like, we're not gonna pull. 1 second. We're looking at what's going on.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. That's great. So we'll be looking for an announcement for Battle at the Bar 2 then.
Battle at the Bar 2. I've already put it on the bar's PR board. Battle at the Bar 1 complete. Battle at the Bar 2 pending. So it is in the organization stage. One super match for sure. And I may do something unheard of. Okay, so actually, I'll pick your brain on this, and we'll kind of close out with this. So, what do you think should be a stipulation for a super match? And I'll just kind of leave it open ended like that. Like what would make 2 people qualified to have a super match?
Okay, so now this is great because this is something I've asked a couple of the guys that I've pulled with. So Paul Passmore and Cody in particular, I think, were great examples of this. Paul in particular, because Paul's been pulling for a long while, and he'll tell you the difference of what used to be considered necessary to pull a super match versus what should be considered necessary now. And generally, what if I remember what Paul's kind of saying is, there's a lot of guys and they like come in, they pull one tournament. I've been pulling for 2 years and I'm ready for a super match. Where it used to be, you had to travel, you had to podium at the big tournaments, and everybody knew what they were. And if you podiumed at the big tournaments, like what is it, Arkansas? I think just happened the other day, and they've got the big trophies. Is it the gorilla? Is it the gorilla at Arkansas?
Yes.
Yeah. And Paul's got some at his house. He's got a trophy room, and he said, if you get one of these, you're a bad dude. Okay.
Right.
People have the art, certain tournaments like that, and a few others. That's how you would get a super match if you had something like that. Nowadays, in my mind, I think it should still be something close. I would understand if there's somebody with some, if you wanted to do something fun. So, for example, like the Brian Shaw kind of a match. Like if you, hey, we've got a strong man and we've got a power lifter, and they're both everybody knows them, and we want to see them pull, and they don't really, they're not experienced arm wrestlers, but it's cool. I
Right.
like that, but I think you should definitely have to have some kind of either serious arm wrestling acumen,
Mhm.
some kind of reputation,
A resume.
a resume. Yeah, build your arm wrestling resume, or if everyone's just like, yeah, we're doing something fun, and that's cool too.
Yeah.
I don't mind giving some, but I think what Paul said is if it's some smaller guys, he would call it a challenger match as opposed to a super match. If you've got a smaller card and it's just two guys that want to
Mm.
have a ranked match, a ranking match maybe,
Mm.
and they're like number 9 and number 8. Like everybody in the South Carolina guys, if there's the South Carolina rank, we know who they are, but most
Yeah.
people aren't. It's not a super match. So
Mm.
I like that idea. I think maybe that's a challenge
So
match.
so like a an inner club match is that kind of
Sure. Yeah.
what you're
Yeah.
getting?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You could always do those too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think Paul made a good point saying like it's not exactly the same thing as a super match,
Sure.
right? Rankings match or challenge match or in your club kind of a thing. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, and I know we're wrapping up. Um, when I first discovered who Adam Wrzynski was, he has this Clark Kent vibe to him. He's like
Glasses.
the glasses, the
Oh,
hair, and you're just waiting for him to pull out the Superman shirt, right? Um, um, After I had started training with those guys, I really started doing research. Of course, I did research on Adam before. I was like, man, who is this dude? And it doesn't take long before you start going down the rabbit hole. It's like you start finding out who's who, right? And man, Adam is like been killing it, like first, second, first, third, but it was in two weight classes above his, and he
he
lost.
pulls 3-4 classes every tournament he goes
Yeah,
to.
yeah, and podiums in most of them.
Right and left. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think for him, and I'm not speaking, obviously I'm not trying to speak for him, but it was first off, COVID just kind of killed a lot of things, right? WAL's never come back. That was kind of the before Engen really saved arm wrestling. That was kind of the WAL was kind of the thing over here. Um, and I was wondering the same thing. All that said to say this, like, man, when is Adam going to get a shot at this? Like, just when is he going to get screen time anywhere? Um, and you know, he got it all right. So so and I'm anxiously awaiting his next match. So I'm needless to say, I'm a Warzone fan. So
Oh yeah, I was a fan after I got to film them pulling Paul Talbot. I
oh
got to
yeah,
told you
oh
that
yeah,
story. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I got to meet him for the first time, and I had no idea who Chad Silvers was. I had no idea who all the red polos were. But my buddy
Yeah.
Ike, like I was just like, hey, you're gonna want to film this. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
introduce you. I'm gonna put in a good word to the promoter and to
Awesome.
Adam. And they're like, yeah, you can stand up there. And little did I know, Artem was up there filming next to me, and I was like over there with my little camera, and I'm like,
So
who are all these people?
I jokingly when Adam was doing an interview with Ray Lipens, I think I sent in like a 99-cent super chat or something just to get a comment out there. I said, I think we should all aspire to be like Adam when we grow up. And Adam's 7 or 8 years younger than me, but just an incredible dude. I mean, he'd only met me a couple times through practice or whatever, and he was like, "Yeah, just let me know if you need to come to my gym. I'll leave it open for you." I'm like, yeah. So he's got a 2-car garage that's a gym, and it's like it's a arm wrestling dedicated gym. Um, and like how many people would do that? You know, um, and just such a nice guy. I mean, you can't think of a nicer guy. So
Yeah.
No, Adam does not pay me to say nice things about Adam.
he's we got to pencil him in for an interview.
Yeah.
I've got a long list of guys. I would love to get Chad. I'd love to get Adam. I know Chad doesn't do a whole lot of appearances.
He is behind the scenes, man. I know, right. So a couple years ago, he was going to do, I think, a round robin with Adam and Craig Touye was in there in that round robin, and I was licking my chops, right? Nothing against Craig, but I know they were had a rivalry going back and forth throughout the years, and I think Chad had an injury of some sort. I don't know if he pulled something. I don't know. I think he's. If you were to ask him, I think he would say he's had his time. He enjoys seeing his students. You know, Hunter, Adam, they're them succeeding. So just the year and a half off and on that I was going over there, watching like when Adam was getting ready for Bozadar, his first East versus West, watching the energy and knowledge that Chad was pouring into Adam was special, and I'm trying to soak up what I can. So to have a sensei, like that's awesome. So they've got a special thing going.